All right, so I want to talk to you about jerks. And, you know who I'm talking about. I mean, all the jerks in your life, all the jerks in my life, Stu. And where did that come from? Where all these jerks come from? How come there are so many jerks around us?
I was born in New York, and I grew up in Connecticut.
Yeah. Whew. Well, you know what it is. It's the hardships of childhood. They had a hard time in childhood. They had, oh my gosh, they had all kinds of trials and tribulations that you just don't know. Yeah. They had tests like crazy. Oh boy, they were put to the test. And so what happens is most people will, mask the pain. I used alcohol to mask the pain. Others mask it with greed or gluttony. I actually do a little of that one too. Arrogance. Distance. And so you look at them and you're like, that's an arrogant SOB. And you don't know about all the trials and the tests and the tribulations. But which one do you want to be? I mean, because we all had stuff that happened to us. We all have had stuff happen to us. It's funny. A friend of mine said, everybody wants a testimony. Everybody loves the testimony of somebody who is like, oh my gosh, I was so poor and broke and downtrodden and I had nothing. And then all of a sudden I realized, and now look at me, I'm Jennifer Aniston. And everybody loves that. Everybody loves that. But a testimony requires the first part. It's not the emony, it's the test. The test is what gives you the emony. And nobody wants it. Nobody wants hard times. Life is unfair. It's so unfair. I don't like it because it's not fair. Who started this lie that life was fair? Life is hard. And then it gets harder. And then you die. Now, that's a pretty pessimistic way to look at it, but it's true. However, I could not get through my day if it was like that. I've had really, really bad days. I've had really bad years. I've had horrible decades. But it gets better. Even my lows aren't so low. And that happened for a reason. So if you're today thinking, well, I can't make it, or if you think that there's really legitimate, and I'm sure there are, really legitimate things that have happened to you that are unfair, the question is, stop whining for a second. If you want to fix it, ask yourself this question. So now what? My life sucks right now, and the world is unfair. Okay, now what? Because you can't just spend your whole life, oh, life is unfair. Yeah, I know. You've told me 1,000 times. Now what? And you really have two routes. You can try to make life fair. That's going to be tough. But you can try to make life fair. Now, the problem with that is when you make it fair for some, it will be unfair for others. For instance, income tax. Is it fair that, people at the upper end of the spectrum pay 50% of everything they earn and 50% of the country pays nothing? Is that fair? Do we all have a dog in the fight? Are we all in it together if half of the people are getting money from the government and not putting anything in? I don't think that's fair. But life isn't fair. But if we're trying to make it fair, well, for instance, there's a story out. The Democrats are now going to, they're trying to pass some new bill, a Democratic proposal that will give more federal aid to black people than white people. Well, that doesn't sound fair, does it? Just because of your skin color, you have a better chance of getting aid? Look, if if something's out of balance, I want to fix that. Because fairness is treating everyone alike, I thought. But now fairness is to make sure, I guess, that we're discriminating against one group in favor of another. But I thought that was discrimination, and we banned that in our enlightened 1960s and 1865. I thought we got rid of that stuff. At least that's what we were trying to do. But see, it's the disparity. Whites, 72% of white families own a home. Only 42% of black families own homes. Okay, so that's a 30-point gap. That's bad. It must have been getting worse, right? Well, in 1960, that 30-point gap was a 27-point gap. So the $20 trillion that the United States of America has put in to raise the level of black families, trillions, over $20 trillion. And we still have a 27-point gap over a 30% gap. And has the rest of their lives gotten better from this? No, but life isn't fair. Well, wait a minute. When you're trying to fix an issue of unfairness, what happens when your fix becomes unfair? Then you have to ask yourself, do the ends justify the means? Do you think you should be punished for laws that you didn't create? In other words, I didn't round up the Japanese. FDR did. I didn't enslave people. My people weren't even here in America when that was going on. I mean, I hate to point out they were in Germany because it doesn't really help my case any, but they weren't here. So what's the deal with that? That doesn't seem fair. Would you want to pay for something that you didn't have any part of? Would you want to be punished for something you wouldn't want, that you didn't do? Would you want to be punished because those who look like you in terms of skin color did something or created something that now is deemed bad, but was fine back then? I wouldn't. And I wouldn't want to subject anybody else, because if I can subject them to that, they can subject me into that same category. The best man can do is say life isn't always fair and try to create win-wins. But to create a win-win, you kind of have to let nature work. So your first option is, try to make life fair. But that's fraught with traps. The other is you could get angry and take it out on others. And that's where a lot of people go. It's where a lot of people are now. Why do you think, where did Antifa come from? What is that? They care about totalitarianism. No, they don't. They're fascists. It's either their way or no way. That's pretty much a thumbnail of a fascist. Where did all this anger come from? Well, they're white, mainly white people, and they've had a very hard time usually growing up in the suburbs, so you can see the angst there. We're just trying to help other people, trying to make it fair for them. Oh, by being unfair? Well, life's just against you. Really? Because I'd like to say life is probably not against you. Most likely not. Most likely not against you. Everybody is born, and everybody, is not born with the same anything except humanness. So we're all human. But life is supposed to be something that you can work your way through. And, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was kind and actually thanked the executioner right before he was hung. He seemed to work that out, and it was pretty bad. He was in a concentration camp for a while and then executed 15 days before Hitler. How unfair is that? He fought against Hitler the whole time, and 15 days before Hitler kills himself, they execute him. Boy, that's not fair. Sometimes it's true that the cards are stacked against you. I mean, I'd hate to point out that the cards were pretty much stacked against me from birth. You know, to be here, no way. No way this would happen. Is it because I'm white? Nope. It's because I was raised, figure it out. It's got to be a path. Figure it out. Now, when no media would take me, when everybody was like, oh, you can't be anything but Fox. Really? I'm going to start something new. That's crazy. How stupid is that? Nobody's going to watch streaming online. Yeah, that's what they said 10 years ago. Now look at where we are. Life, I can't get a show on a network. I've tried to get shows on Amazon and Netflix, HBO. I've met with them. They've actually said to me, this is great, but we can't work with you. Why? Because the other artists wouldn't like it. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that doesn't seem fair, does it? Does it? So do I go and try to break them all up and say, you can't do that? Nope. Just do it my way. And realize that there are things I can't do. But see, I take a third way to life isn't fair. I know that. I admit that. Sucks to be you sometimes. Sucks to be me sometimes. But I also know that I'm a beacon. I also know that what I think, I attract. So if I'm thinking negative things, I'll attract negative things. If I think negative thoughts, I'm going to attract negative people. But if I'm thinking positive things, good things, and I'm actually engaged in living that, good things will follow. Not always. Not the things that you necessarily want. I haven't wanted the last 10 years. Stu, have you really wanted the last 10 years? If you were mapping out 10 years ago what these 10 years would have been like, would you have got, you know what, Glenn, I'd be happy if that was the path.
I may have diagrammed it a little bit differently.
Yes, yeah. Exactly right. But are you happy with where you are now in 10 years, even though everything that's happened to us in the last 10 years?
Sure.
I am.
It's all part of that journey, I suppose. Even though some turns we ran into brick walls. Yes.
And really kind of like did some damage. Not to the wall, to us. You know, study after study shows that religious people and conservatives are happy. They're happier than liberals. And the more down that road of Marxism you go, the darker you seem to go. Why? Because where's the hope in everything sucks? Where's the hope in I'll never get better, I'll never get out of this trap, and neither will my kids? Where is the hope in everything has to be burned down? You know, because at some point you do stop and go, if we burn everything down, what's going to be left that will get everybody to hang together through it? That's why Marxist revolutions always end in some horrible... You know, it wasn't Stalin that was the pick of the people. That happened afterwards. Stalin came in, right after. It doesn't work out. And it did here in America because they had a positive vision. We believe that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to make sure that those things are guarded, we lend certain rights to the government. And if the government ever becomes an adversary to those rights, we have the right and the responsibility to abolish it and then set something up that will be better at protecting those rights. See, it's not like we're going to abolish America. That's what Antifa would say. We're just going to do something different. Really? What? Could you share it with us? That's what people in Washington are doing. We're just going to change all this. To what? How about you share it? See, that was the difference between all revolutions and our revolution. We set out at the forefront. This is what we want to build. And if we can take control of our own self, we will build that. And they did. And it wasn't promised to be utopia. It was promised to be a place that would live by the rule of law, not the rule of men, but the rule of law, and that we would correct our mistakes. Because we weren't setting up a perfect nation. We want to set up a more perfect nation, one that is going to have flaws, one that's not going to be fair, because only God's kingdom will be fair. One that won't be fair, but we try every day to make it more fair, more perfect for as many people as we can without doing harm to the rights of the rest of the people.